Welcome to the Grandpa Channel, where stories don't fade, they get recorded. I'm Steve Harris. My grandkids call me Rivers. This podcast is where grandpas and grandchildren pull up a chair, turn on a mic, and let her rip. Grandpa stories are chock full of wisdom, life lessons, and frankly, funny as hell. Your stories are the magic elixir to help your grandkids navigate Mr. Toad's wild ride, aka life. Let's Grandpa. Listen up, grandpas. Have you actually pulled the trigger on recording your life story? I'm talking video, baby. They want to remember your corny jokes, your crooked smile, your rugged good looks, and the jaunty bounce of your voice. What if I told you there was a really easy way to do this? Recently, I sat down and I told my life story on video. Not the whole thing, but the good stuff, the messy stuff, the funny stuff, the parts I didn't want to forget and the parts that I did not want my kids and my grandkids to forget. Planted Media made it so easy. They came to me, set up everything, and then they did some editing voodoo magic that made me look like $1 million. Go to plantedmediaco.com and tell them Rivers sent you, and you'll get a nice little Grandpa Channel discount. All right, back to the show. Good morning and welcome to the Grandpa Channel. My name is Steve Harris, and my grandkids call me Rivers. I am so excited. An illustrious historian, author, and just wonderful father and grandfather, Richard Bushman. And we're speaking to each other. I believe you're in New York City as we speak. Welcome to the show, Richard. And I'm so excited, and I'm nervous, I might add, to have you on the show. Tell me a little bit about your situation with being a grandpa and great grandpa and all that sort of fun stuff.
We live in New York City. There's the Hudson River right outside my window with New Jersey on the other side and Riverside Park with them. We've lived here for 36 years, so it's really our home. We've lived here longer than any other place. And it's a great place for a grandparent because people enjoy coming to New York. We say we'll give you a free bed if you'll come and visit us, and quite a few do. I have one of our granddaughters living with us now while she's getting a start in life in the city.
So how many grandkids and great grandkids? Just to kind of throw that out there.
Well, we had children. One of them, as our oldest daughters, passed away. And then they have produced a total of 20 grandchildren. And then we have 4 great-grandchildren, 2 more on the way. I remember having one of our family reunions in this room, and we were sitting there. It was our 50th, actually, or our 50th wedding reunion. And we were surrounded by all these people. And I turned to my wife and I said, 50 years ago, there were just 2 of us. There's this army of you. So it's quite a miracle the way grandparenting comes about.
Have you enjoyed being a grandpa, Richard?
Well, it's the delight of my life. Every family has problems, so it's not like it's just one sweet, joyous experience after another. But there have been a lot of sweet, joyous experiences.
Yeah.
Last night we had 3 of our grandchildren here. A number of them live in New York. And, they're wonderful grown-up people. It isn't just talking about family, but seeing them and they're by the whole family project.
Have you, as a historian and as a keen observer of American history and culture as it's changed over time, has the role of grandfathers changed over time as you read things and see things?
It has, simply because it's become an extended role. It was, when your average death time is in the 60s or 70s, you don't have nearly as much grandfathering going on as we do now. I'm 94, so I've had many, many years. But in the old days, there was a huge responsibility of fathers and grandfathers to provide for their offspring.
Mm-hmm.
And 2/3 to 3/4 of the country are farmers, accumulating land and being able to set your children up with land was your major responsibility. And that's not easy to do. The Smith family didn't do it. Joseph Smith Sr. lost all his land when he's in his 50s. He has nothing to give to his children. So it's kind of a difficult and demanding role that grandfathers had then. But economic sustenance is at the heart of the grandfather's role.
Do you think that's less the case now, or is it still the case?
The equivalent now is getting your kids a college education.
Yeah, it is.
That's what you have to do. Then, after that, in most families, they're on their own to make their way. But that's a parental role.
Yeah.
Then the grandparental role comes along a little later, and that's more maybe wisdom, maybe guidance, maybe an alternative to a parent. We've had grandkids who are arguing with their parents who would come and live with us for a while. So it was another place you could go and count on love and support when you're struggling.
My father, who was a wonderful father, passed away about 12 years ago. And when he was my age, I'm 70, he said to me, he said, Steve, he says, I do more parenting now than I did when I was your age. And I'm kind of a smart aleck, but I loved and respected my dad. And I'd rolled my eyes and I was thinking to myself, that is a load of crap. And as it turns out, he was absolutely correct. And do you feel that kind of weight as, as a grandfather and as a great grandfather sometimes, that your parenting is never and grandparenting is never done?
Well, it's true. It can be delicate. You don't want to interfere. I think parents generally appreciate if they've got some backup. And we contribute to the feeling that the world is a friendly place. There are lots of miseries that everyone has to go through. And if you've got not just parents who love you, but grandparents with whom you probably have had less tension, less struggle, which is always present in parent-child relations, someone you can go to that and you can count on. It just goes with the territory. So, yeah, I think that's immense value.
Has there been, as a grandfather and great-grandfather, has there been anything that surprised you as being a grandfather and a great-grandfather? Any surprises?
Well, one thing that surprises me is difference. We've got enough. Man, they are all over the lot in terms of their character and their outlook towards life, their feelings about the church. Pretty good on feeling comfortable in the family. Then I got to give my kids credit. Not everyone feels comfortable, but most of them do. But otherwise, we have a transgender daughter. We have a couple of gay kids. We've got kids who are in professions and starting, others who are struggling, to get a job at 35. Some kids have troubles getting a steady job. So it's varied. But, that's part of the delight. I mean, it's just marvelous to look at the variegation in your offspring.
What has been your personal experience with your grandfathers? Did you know them? Did you know your great-grandfathers at all?
One, I didn't know great-grandfathers. My grandfather, I saw when he was lying on the bed, and I was about 2 feet high.
Yeah.
When I saw his profile.
Yeah.
And that's all I know of him.
Yeah.
The other grandfather was a marvelous man. I loved him. He was a very sturdy guy.
Yeah.
Just rock-like.
Yeah.
And he sold shoes for ZCMI.
Really?
Not in the store, but he'd go up through the Idaho and into southern Utah selling wholesale shoes to shoe store dealers all over. And he was the kind of guy, if you'd play checkers with him, he would never sacrifice a piece, and it always skunk you.
Yeah.
This solid son of a gun. So he was the kind of, he'd invest his money, but he'd never sell. He'd never sell. The stock could go down to zero. He would not sell it. So I love that about him because I'm a little more flighty. I'm not, I get all sorts of ideas. He is sort of assurance that maybe in me there's a little bit of that steadiness that I really admire.
If you thought about yourself, and I know you'll answer the question modestly, but I'm asking you to maybe be less modest about this. If you thought that you had a superpower or two, Richard, as a grandfather, what would come to your mind?
What I would really like is to deeply understand my grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So I really knew what was going on and could say something or be something that would steady them, give them courage to go on. I have a strange practice that I started many years ago of writing prophecies every New Year's Day. So every grandchild and child get a little 2 or 3 line prophecy about what the next year will be. And I think that practice stems out of my wish to be a traditional good grandfather, to see things that really counted and could help them out. And that begins, of course, with understanding where they really are and what they're up to.
You knew the one grandfather. He sounds like an intriguing person. Have you studied much the lives of you've studied the lives of thousands and thousands of people here in America, leaders, political leaders and founders of the country. But have you studied their lives much, or not much source material to study?
My sister, bless her heart, did a oral history of my grandmother and grandfather, still both alive. And I've got that. My wife did one of her father, which serves some of the same purpose. My grandfather on my father's side, as I say, is really a sort of an invisible person to me. It's sort of a presence rather than a personality. I have a sense of who he is.
As you studied American history and thought and pondered about this, are there any remarkable characters that jump out at you as or a great grandpa? Did you find that there were these great people who were great because they really connected, or did they really even know much about their
That's a question I haven't really contemplated, trying to think of presidents. As I say, grandfathers tended to disappear pretty quickly in those days. So the Adams family developed a sense of their traditions. Of course, there are so many eminent men, eminent political figures, that even the imagined grandparents of the Adams down to Henry Adams hung over them. In that case, it tends to be a burden, in that the family has such an eminent reputation. It's sort of like the Kennedys today. If you're a Kennedy and descended from John Kennedy, it sort of puts pressure on you to do something great.
One of the reasons why I wanted to start this channel, it's spiritually motivated by the last verse of the Old Testament. I feel like we're helping grandfathers connect with their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. In Malachi 4:6, it says, "And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers." And this is a very molecular sort of attempt, and there are lots of other things that can happen. I just think that this is a part of what's kind of happening, where grandkids really do wonder about their grandparents. But I love the idea of grandpas helping grandpas, but connecting with the grandkids. And so how have you been able to connect with your grandkids to get to really know them? Because I think that's a real key thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, well, there's both you getting to know them and them getting to know you. my wife, who's here beside me, would immediately ask, "Are you keeping a journal? Are you writing an autobiography?"
Yeah.
Because this account she took down as dictation from her father has had an immense influence on not only his descendants, but our, down 3 or 4, and sort of stand as a figure. You need to keep a journal or you testify what you've done. I think that's great. But, in recent years, it's getting so easy to communicate. We're on the line with our kids a huge amount. It's quite remarkable. And there their faces are. You see their vitality and so on. I think you don't want to say, well, my job is to be the wise one who shows you how to live your life and gives you invaluable counsel. I think that it's just feeling your personality, just touching your hands. You can get that through Zoom, just talking to one another.
Do you tell a lot of stories to not only your grandkids, but to your kids growing up? Did you tell stories of American heroes, or did you tell more personal stories, Richard? I mean, in a lot of ways, you're a storyteller. I just would love to hear your take on the power of stories, the power of grandpas telling stories to their kids. I'd just love to hear what you might have to say.
Well, I don't know that I made it a conscious program the way you're suggesting, which I think is absolutely right. But I think the idea of telling people about who you are, just let them feel the contours of your being, your person. That's the most invaluable thing you can do. And then in turn, try to sense who they are. Let them tell you stories of their lives. We're both historians. Claudia writes histories too. She's better at writing family histories and telling stories. But I would say that there is a body of lore in our family. When I start to tell stories nowadays, my kids all say, "Oh yeah, I know all about it." You can get repetitious. So I would underscore what you've said many times. I think you're right on target. Tell people about who you are.
How would you encourage people to draw stories out of their lives? And I would agree with you that a lot of times it's some of what I would deem to be inconsequential things that have happened to me that turn out to really be a winner with my kids. And usually it shows me in a not so wonderful light. It shows that I'm vulnerable, that I've goofed up. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I think that if you had a grandpa who was just this high and mighty potentate, I don't know if I'd feel real comfortable, talking and kind of letting it all, And I think that's, plus it's kind of fun. I love to find humor in things, and I love to make my grandkids laugh. And if I do that, and especially if I make my wife laugh, then I know I've done something really, really good.
No, I'm with you 100% on that. We have these family reunions every 2 years. Our kids are scattered all over the world, so we have to make an effort to get it together. And we have family reports where we talk about what's happening.
Yeah.
And then, I like just calling them. Let's give it a call and say what's happening. That's a good time to exchange experiences.
You're right. Technology has made it so easy to connect. There's really no excuse. Where are all your kids out in the world, Richard?
Well, they're scattered about. I'm an academic, and academics tend to move from place to place. We started in Provo, our married life. I taught at BYU, and then moved to Boston, then to Delaware, and now New York. So we ourselves have moved, but our youngest is in Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Next is in Provo. The next is in Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. We have a son in Pittsburgh, happens to be visiting here today. and then one in Kuwait. Wow. He's in finance, and he got involved in managing Arab money, and he took him to Saudi Arabia, now Kuwait, and where he's become a musician. He has an orchestra and a chorus that he performs with in Kuwait. So it's quite a gang.
In your estimation, do you think that the role of grandparents over time has diminished or is intensified? And I guess that's, has a lot to do with demographics and life expectancy, like you were telling us before. But do you think that the role of a grandpa is an elevated role? Is it under attack? How do you view things?
Yeah, well, I think you're right in thinking that it's increasing in its importance simply because we live longer, and it used to be families moved. That was sort of the end of it. You got a letter every couple of years. That was lucky. But when the Smiths moved from Vermont to New York, that was like saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Well, how would you ever get back together again? Now, when I was growing up, and still today, a lot of family vacations consist of going to see the grandparents and living with them, and I think that's a wonderful tradition. And then more and more ways to get in touch with one another. As a matter of fact, as you're talking here, I'm beginning to see the role of grandparents is enlarging.
Yeah.
Your parental role is sort of thrust upon you. Feed the kids, get them educated. The grandparent is sort of more a matter of choice, decision. You can make of that role what you want. Mm-hmm. And I think it has to be thought about and worked on. And so what you're doing here is I think, precisely what is needed. And you're not sort of taught how to do it. You have you create the role.
Right.
The grandparents could just sort of recede. You just become an old person, just hangs around in a chair somewhere. But nowadays, especially since they're a little more vital at older ages, you need to take an initiative.
I'll ask you a personal question. If I went to one or two or more of your grandchildren, I'm not threatening to do this, Richard. I just want you to know that. If I went to them and said, how would you describe your grandpa? What do you think they might say?
Well, I know what I want them to say.
What would you want them to say? And then we'll see if that aligns with reality.
I would like them to say that I can help them out when they have a problem, that I'm useful in helping them. I would like to say that I have them say I'm wise, but I don't think they would say that. That would be just sort of a compliment. I would like them to tell some story where they were helped. I think they do like these prophecies, because I not only send one to each one of them, they all get the other's prophecies.
Oh, do they really? Interesting.
So they're very curious to know what I think of all the other grandkids. Yeah. I hope they say I'm generous in some way, that I help them out when they need it.
Yeah. Do you have a particular historical figure in American history that really inspires you, and maybe with the idea of hopefully that person was also a decent dad and grandfather if he lived to be able to enjoy things? Who do you feel inspired by from American history, Richard?
Well, if you extend the definition of American history, I have a lot of respect for Mormon. I think he was a terrific father and inspired his son, and was so wise and strong. And his letters to Moroni, speak for a father who unburdened himself of all the sorrows he felt, all his failures, and his deep regret at what had happened to his people. Now, there's a dad who's a storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have immense admiration for his character and his mind. He was a very competent historian, but also for his wisdom as being a good grandfather.
Is there a particular person in history that if you had 15 minutes with them, somehow I was able to teleport them to sit where I'm sitting right now? Is there a particular figure, both from your family and from American history, that you would maybe have a few really incredible questions to ask, or just want to bask in their wisdom? Anybody stand out to you?
Well, I will demonstrate the limits of my imagination, but I would like to have an hour or two with Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
Because he was another good father, very filled with love, just enveloped his kids in love. And I think Emma was a good mother, too. She deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Sure.
What role did older male family members in your life play in your upbringing? And who was an inspirational figure? Was it your dad, or was it somebody else in the family that kind of helped guide and mentor you in the ways of family and things like that?
Well, my dad was a very generous man. He never got mad. He was very kindly. I didn't fear him.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's good. Maybe I should give him a little more.
Yeah.
So he was there. I had two uncles, both of whom, one of them was very jolly, told them all the jokes, and was sort of an entertaining figure. The other, I would go in the summers and visit him. He owned a pharmacy, and I would go and he'd give me a job for the summer. And my dad would never touch a gun. This other uncle did have guns, and he took me out of a shoot, and that was a little flavor of another kind of life. Really wanted to be a cowboy. Anyway, I think it was a matter of sampling other kinds of personalities might affect me. I could borrow little fragments to create my own identity.
I'm intrigued by these prophecies that you write and send to your grandchildren. And you said it was each grandchild that you sent to on a yearly basis?
Yeah.
How do you get to a point where you feel like you've got a prophecy coming on for each of the kids?
Well, it helps to have been a patriarch.
Yeah.
If you want to get in that mode, and it's not a matter of calculation. It's just letting the inspiration flow. Just fairly responsive to impulses. Try to trust them like you do when you have to give a blessing.
I want you to give for some of the people who might be seeing this, we use the term patriarch, and explain what that means, what that's meant for you. I mean, in a grand sense, all of us grandfathers, hopefully, were good patriarchs. The patriarch also has some negative connotations for a lot of people. But talk about what you did as a patriarch in the LDS Church, Richard. Mm-hmm. How would you describe that?
It's a role that's derived from the Old Testament patriarchs who had huge families but at the end of their lives, would bless their children. And Lehi does the same with his kids. So it's a tradition of blessing and promise. Mm-hmm. And early in the church's history, the Latter-day Saint Church history, Joseph Smith was told that his father should perform this function within the church, beginning with his own sons, but then through circumstances extended to other people. And now there are patriarchs in, every stake in the church. And people, usually when they're young, but often sometimes when they're old, ask the bishop if they could have a blessing, and the bishop will recommend them to me, and then they come and visit, and I get to know them a little bit in a few minutes, and then seek to give them a blessing, again, whenever it comes into my head. And it's an interesting role because studies have been done about people who leave the Latter-day Saint Church are disillusioned in some way. And one thing they hold on to is their patriarchal blessing.
Really?
I think that is something that was valuable to them. I think because in a way it's pure. You're not trying to manage them or manipulate them or ask them to do something or rebuke them. You're just saying what flows from your heart. The fact
is that really what you should be doing as a grandpa?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I think grandfathers should give blessing.
Yeah.
I tell my grandkids if they want a blessing, I'm always pleased to give them one.
Yeah. I think that what a blessing that is for your grandkids, Richard. I mean, that's wonderful, and I think that's really what we're supposed to be doing as grandfathers is letting the pure words from the heart go to your grandkids and being subject to and listening to divine promptings. And I just know that when I do that, and I don't do it as often as I should, but when I do, really, really good things happen. And the byproduct is I feel I like myself, and but that's not why you do it. I think that the idea of being a fountain of righteousness or a fountain of knowledge and wisdom and faith, I think, is a really important thing.
Yeah.
I think one last question I'd like to ask you is, you're 94, and what if I was able to somehow bring your 34-year-old Richard Bushman and have him sit where I'm sitting right now? What would you tell, as a 94-year-old Richard Bushman, what would you tell the 34-year-old Richard Bushman?
My one regret about my fatherhood is that I let work dominate my life.
Mm-hmm.
And we never went on vacations in our family. As a child, I loved vacations, but there was summer times when you got your scholarship done.
Mm-hmm.
And and it was an expense, and we were not very well off. So I think I try to make more fun in our family. Times when the one place where we got this is talking sports, because the kids are always interested in sports, and there's always something going on in the larger sporting world. And that was kind of uninhibited freedom. You're not angling to get the kids to do something or warning them or admonishing them in some way. You're just for fun, just for fun. And I think there should have been a little more fun in our family.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the final question I've got for you is, if this were Teddy Roosevelt's, was he the bully pulpit? The first one to use, was that term sort of jumps into mind. I'm a Teddy Roosevelt fan. If this were your bully pulpit, and armed with your vast amount of 94 years of experiences and readings and all of the collective knowledge and experiences and what would you say to a 64-year-old or even a 54-year-old grandpa, maybe, who's just starting out? What would you say to him?
I would say something about time. You just have to spend time with your grandkids and sort of open time. I'm now going to reshape your life for you, but just being with you, it could be just walks together. It could be fun times together, but they need to feel who you are.
Yeah.
As you said, I think earlier, you never know what you say that will be influential. And usually the things you want to be influential. I'll actually tell a story along this line. When my son went off to school, we were living in the same area, and his roommate, who was a Latter-day Saint, came up to us in church one time and said, "Is your son active in the church?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Isn't he going to church?" The roommate would know. We didn't necessarily know. He said, "No, I don't think he ever goes to church." And suddenly thought, "Gee, God, what's going on here?" Because this was the time when he's getting ready for a mission. Yeah. So I wrote him a letter in which I said, "You're going to have to make this decision. It's yours to make. I would advise you to try to keep yourself on this straight and narrow path, because guilt clouds the mind, fogs the mind. You can't make clean decisions. You need to make the right decision here." And I thought it was one of the better strokes of my fatherhood.
Yeah.
He did go on a mission, so it worked out fine. But I think I remember receiving that letter. It just washed off him. So you're not always getting to them when you think you're getting to them.
No, I think that's one of the surprises. And I agree with you that sometimes it's the things you have no idea that, would floor you what they remember from conversations years ago. Well, Richard, I want to
only be grateful when they turn out good.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't say I did it. I shaped these kids with 100 million things that make them what they are.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the Grandpa Channel, and you've given me a lot of things to think about. And so thank you very much for your time.
I enjoy the conversation. I think you're doing a great work.
Well, thank you very much. And I hope all of you have enjoyed the Grandpa Channel. And thanks again to my friend Richard Bushman. That's it for today's episode of the Grandpa Channel. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or better yet, tell your favorite grandpa. We're on a mission to gather 1 million grandpas, storytellers, wisdom keepers, and lovable wild cards. Until next time, keep the mic hot, the memories fresh, and the jokes just slightly inappropriate. I'm out of here.